Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile over 5,000 years ago. No pyramids, no pharaohs, no massive temples rising from the desert, only scattered villages surrounded by endless sand. Yet from this seemingly ordinary landscape would emerge one of the greatest civilizations in human history, a kingdom that would survive for more than 3,000 years, a civilization whose monuments still dominate the horizon, a culture so advanced and mysterious that even today it continues to fascinate the world. Tonight, we journey through the complete story of ancient Egypt, from the first pharaoh to the last dynasty, and our story begins where all Egyptian history begins. The Nile. Long before Egypt existed as a nation, the Nile River was already shaping destiny. Every year, floodwaters overflowed its banks. When the waters retreated, they left behind fertile black soil. In a land surrounded by deserts, this rich soil became a miracle. People settled along the river. Small communities appeared. Farmers cultivated wheat and barley. Fishermen harvested the river's abundant resources. Over generations, villages expanded into towns, and towns evolved into powerful regional kingdoms. Ancient Egypt was divided into two major regions: Upper Egypt in the south, Lower Egypt in the north. Each region developed its own traditions, rulers, and symbols. For centuries, they existed separately, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in conflict. But history was about to change. Around 3100 BC, a powerful ruler emerged from Upper Egypt. His name was Narmer. Many historians believe Narmer became the first king to unite Upper and Lower Egypt into a single kingdom. Ancient carvings show him wearing both royal crowns, a symbol of unity, a symbol of power, and the beginning of ancient Egypt itself. With unification came stability. Government became organized. Trade expanded. Religious systems grew more complex. And for the first time, Egypt began developing a shared national identity. The pharaoh became the center of everything. Unlike ordinary rulers, Egyptian kings were believed to possess divine authority. They were not simply political leaders. They were living representatives of the gods, responsible for maintaining balance throughout the universe. This balance was known as Ma'at, truth, harmony, order, justice. To the Egyptians, Ma'at was essential. Without it, chaos would consume the world. The pharaoh's duty was to preserve this sacred balance. Religion quickly became the foundation of Egyptian society. The Egyptians saw divine forces everywhere. In the Nile, in the stars, in animals, in life, and in death. Powerful gods governed every aspect of existence. Ra ruled the sun. Horus protected kingship. Anubis guided the dead. Osiris ruled the afterlife. The stories of these gods helped Egyptians understand the world around them. Temples were built to honor divine powers. Priests performed rituals. Offerings were made daily. And throughout the kingdom, religion shaped everyday life. As Egypt grew stronger, another revolutionary development appeared: writing. The Egyptians created one of the world's earliest writing systems. Hieroglyphics, beautiful symbols carved into stone and painted onto monuments. These symbols recorded royal achievements, religious beliefs, trade transactions, and historical events. Writing transformed Egypt. Knowledge could now survive beyond a single lifetime. History could be preserved. Ideas could travel through generations. The scribes who mastered writing became highly respected members of society. They recorded everything from taxes to royal decrees. Without them, much of Egyptian history would have been lost forever. Meanwhile, the kingdom continued expanding. Trade routes connected Egypt with neighboring regions. Gold arrived from Nubia. Timber arrived from distant lands. Luxury goods flowed into royal centers. Egypt was becoming wealthy, and wealth brought ambition. The earliest kings began constructing impressive tombs. These tombs were known as mastabas, large rectangular structures built from mud brick. They served as final resting places for rulers and nobles. But Egyptian beliefs about death were evolving. The Egyptians believed the soul continued existing after physical death. Life on earth was only one stage of a much longer journey. This belief would eventually inspire one of history's most extraordinary architectural achievements, the pyramid. But before pyramids could rise from the desert sands, Egypt needed visionaries, innovators, builders, and one of the most important was a man named Imhotep. Serving Pharaoh Dose around 2670 BC, Imhotep designed something revolutionary, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. Unlike earlier tombs, this structure rose skyward in a series of giant steps. It became the first monumental stone building in human history. The Step Pyramid changed everything. It proved that massive stone construction was possible. It demonstrated Egypt's growing engineering abilities, and it marked the beginning of the Pyramid Age, the age that would produce some of the most famous structures ever built. As the sun set over the Nile and the first dynasty strengthened their rule, ancient Egypt stood on the edge of greatness. The foundations had been laid. The kingdom was united. Religion flourished. Writing spread. And ambitious rulers were already dreaming of immortality, dreaming of monuments that would survive forever, monuments that thousands of years later would still inspire wonder across the world. But the greatest achievements of Egypt were still ahead. The pyramids were never supposed to be ordinary tombs. They were machines of eternity, monuments designed to carry kings into the afterlife. Gigantic stone mountains built in a world without cranes, steel, or modern technology. More than 4,500 years later, they still stand, and the mystery of how they were built continues to captivate humanity. Tonight, we enter the age when Egypt reached its first great peak of power, the Age of the Pyramids. Following the success of Dos's Step Pyramid, Egyptian rulers became increasingly ambitious. Each new pharaoh wanted a monument greater than the one before. The belief in the afterlife had become central to Egyptian culture. Death was not seen as an ending. It was a transformation, a journey into eternity. For the soul to survive, the body had to be preserved, the tomb had to be protected, and the ruler needed a proper gateway into the next world. This belief drove some of the most remarkable construction projects in history. One of the key figures in this transformation was Pharaoh Sneferu. Sneferu ruled during the 4th dynasty and became one of Egypt's greatest builders. He experimented with pyramid construction on a massive scale. His architects first created what we now call the bent pyramid. At first, the structure rose steeply toward the sky. Then suddenly, its angle changed. Even today, historians debate why. Perhaps engineers feared collapse. Perhaps they discovered weaknesses in the design. Whatever the reason, the bent pyramid became one of the most unique monuments in Egypt. But Sneferu was not finished. Soon another pyramid rose from the desert, the Red Pyramid. This structure is often considered the first successful true pyramid. Its smooth sides created the classic shape we recognize today. The lessons learned from these projects would make something even greater possible, because Sneferu's son had dreams unlike any ruler before him. His name was Khufu, and he would build the most famous monument in human history, the Great Pyramid of Giza. When construction began around 2580 BC, Egypt was one of the wealthiest and most organized societies on earth. Thousands of workers gathered near the construction site. Stone quarries operated continuously. Engineers planned every detail. Food, water, and supplies flowed through carefully organized systems. For decades, the project continued, block after block, layer after layer, until an artificial mountain emerged from the desert itself. The Great Pyramid originally stood nearly 500 feet tall. For more than 3,800 years, it remained the tallest structure ever built by human hands. Its precision still astonishes modern engineers. The pyramid aligns almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. Its base is remarkably level. Its dimensions reveal extraordinary mathematical accuracy. Yet despite centuries of research, questions remain. How exactly were millions of stone blocks transported? How were they lifted into place? What techniques allowed such precision? Some researchers believe giant ramps were used. Others suggest complex systems of sleds and levers. Experiments have shown that wet sand may have reduced friction, making transportation easier. But no single explanation answers every question. The Great Pyramid continues guarding some of its secrets. Inside the monument, narrow passageways lead toward hidden chambers. The king's chamber lies deep within the structure. Massive granite blocks form its walls and ceiling. Nearby are other mysterious spaces whose purpose remains uncertain. Modern scanning technology has even revealed hidden voids within the pyramid, large empty spaces concealed behind stone. No one knows exactly why they exist. Additional chambers, construction features, unknown ceremonial spaces. The mystery remains unsolved. Near Khufu's pyramid, other rulers followed his example. Khafre built the second Great Pyramid at Giza. Menkaure built the third. Together, they transformed the plateau into a landscape unlike anything the world had ever seen. Yet perhaps the most mysterious monument at Giza is not a pyramid at all. It is the Great Sphinx. Carved from a single mass of limestone, the Sphinx possesses a body of a lion and the face of a king. For thousands of years, it has gazed silently across the desert. Wind and sand have battered its features. Entire civilizations have come and gone, yet it remains, watching, waiting, enduring. No one fully understands every aspect of its symbolism. Some believe it represents Khafre. Others focus on its connection to royal power and divine protection. Whatever its original purpose, the Sphinx became one of the most recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt. For many years, popular stories claim the pyramids were built by slaves. Modern archaeology tells a different story. Excavations near Giza uncovered worker settlements. These communities contain bakeries, medical facilities, housing, and organized support systems. Evidence suggests many workers were skilled laborers and craftsmen. Building the pyramids required extraordinary planning and cooperation. It was not simply a construction project. It was a national effort, a demonstration of Egypt's wealth, organization, and belief in eternity. As pyramid construction flourished, Egyptian burial practices also became increasingly sophisticated. Mummification developed into a complex process. Priests carefully prepared the body. Internal organs were removed and preserved. The body was dried using natron salt, then wrapped in layers of linen. Amulets were placed among the wrappings for protection. Religious texts guided the soul through the dangers of the afterlife. Everything was designed to ensure survival beyond death. The Egyptians imagined the next world as a place of abundance, fields of eternal harvests, flowing water, endless sunlight, and reunion with the gods. The pharaoh hoped to join divine beings among the stars. This belief shaped every aspect of royal burial. Yet even as Egypt reached extraordinary heights of power, change was approaching. Maintaining giant construction projects demanded enormous resources. Over time, royal authority weakened. Regional leaders gained influence. Economic pressures increased. The age of giant pyramids slowly came to an end. But Egypt itself endured. New dynasties rose. New ideas emerged. And from the challenges ahead would come one of the most powerful periods in Egyptian history. A golden age filled with warrior kings, legendary queens, magnificent temples, and vast empires. The pyramids had already become ancient. Thousands of workers had transformed the desert into a landscape of stone giants. But ancient Egypt was far from finished. In fact, its greatest age was still ahead, an age of powerful warrior kings, legendary queens, massive temples covered in gold, and armies that carried Egypt's influence across the ancient world. This was the golden age of ancient Egypt, the era when the kingdom beside the Nile became one of the most powerful civilizations on earth. After the age of the Great Pyramids, Egypt entered a period of instability. Powerful local governors gained influence. Royal authority weakened. Trade declined. And the centralized government that had built the pyramids slowly fractured. For generations, Egypt experienced political struggles and uncertainty. Yet the Nile continued flowing. The people endured. And eventually, strong rulers reunited the kingdom. This new era became known as the Middle Kingdom. For many Egyptians, it represented a rebirth. Agriculture expanded. Trade routes reopened. Cities prospered once again. Art and literature flourished. Egyptian writers produced stories, poetry, and wisdom texts that would survive for thousands of years. At the same time, religious beliefs continued evolving. Earlier traditions had focused heavily on the divine status of pharaohs. Now, ordinary Egyptians increasingly believed they too could enjoy an afterlife. The promise of eternal existence became available to more people. This change transformed Egyptian society. Tombs became more elaborate. Funerary texts became more common. And religious rituals became even more important. Yet while Egypt strengthened itself internally, new dangers emerged from beyond its borders. Around 1650 BC, foreign groups known as the Hyksos entered northern Egypt. Unlike previous invaders, they possessed technologies unfamiliar to many Egyptians. They used horse-drawn chariots, advanced composite bows, and new military tactics. The Hyksos established control over parts of Lower Egypt and ruled for generations. For the Egyptians, this was a shocking experience. Foreign rulers now controlled portions of their sacred land. But the occupation also taught valuable lessons. Egyptian leaders studied Hyksos' military techniques. They adopted new weapons, improved their armies, and prepared for the future. Eventually, rulers from southern Egypt launched a campaign to drive the Hyksos out. After years of conflict, they succeeded. Egypt was free once again, and stronger than ever. The victory marked the beginning of the new kingdom, the greatest period in ancient Egyptian history. Now Egypt transformed from a regional kingdom into an empire. Its armies marched into neighboring territories. Its influence stretched across the Near East. Gold flowed into royal treasuries. Foreign rulers sent gifts and tribute. The wealth of the empire funded extraordinary building projects. Temples rose throughout the land. Monuments celebrated military victories. And the power of the pharaoh reached unprecedented heights. One of the most remarkable rulers of this era was Hatshepsut, a woman who became pharaoh during a time when kingship was traditionally male. Many expected her reign to be temporary. Instead, she became one of Egypt's most successful rulers. Hatshepsut focused on trade rather than conquest. She organized expeditions to distant lands. Exotic goods arrived in Egypt. Incense, rare woods, precious stones, and luxury products enriched the kingdom. At the same time, she launched impressive construction projects. Her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari remains one of Egypt's architectural masterpieces. Built against towering cliffs, it blends naturally into the surrounding landscape. Even today, it inspires awe. After Hatshepsut came rulers who expanded Egypt's military power. Among the greatest was Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of ancient Egypt. He led numerous military campaigns. His victories extended Egyptian influence across vast territories. Trade flourished, wealth increased, and Egypt reached the height of its imperial power. Yet military success was only part of the story. Religion continued shaping every aspect of life. The god Amun became increasingly important. Centered in the city of Thebes, his worship expanded dramatically. Eventually, Amun merged with the sun god Ra. Together they became Amun-Ra, king of the gods. The priests of Amun gained enormous wealth and influence. Their temples became among the largest religious complexes ever built. The most impressive stood at Karnak. Construction continued there for centuries. Generation after generation added new halls, statues, obelisks, and sanctuaries. Walking through Karnak today feels like entering another world. Towering columns rise like stone forests. Walls are covered with hieroglyphics, and every surface tells stories of gods and kings. Luxor Temple became another masterpiece of Egyptian architecture. Connected to Karnak by a ceremonial avenue lined with sphinxes, it served as one of the kingdom's most sacred places. Religious festivals brought thousands of people together. Music filled the air. Priests carried sacred statues through the streets. And the bond between gods and pharaohs was celebrated before the entire kingdom. Then came one of the most unusual rulers in Egyptian history, Akhenaten, a pharaoh who challenged centuries of tradition. Instead of honoring the many gods of Egypt, Akhenaten focused almost entirely on one deity, the Aten, represented by the sun disk. He closed traditional temples, reduced the power of established priesthoods, and built a completely new capital city. For a brief moment, Egypt experienced a religious revolution. Some historians even describe it as one of history's earliest experiments with monotheism. But the experiment did not last. After Akhenaten's death, the old gods returned. His city was abandoned. His monuments were dismantled. And later rulers attempted to erase his memory from history. One of those later rulers was a young king named Tutankhamun. Today, he is perhaps the most famous pharaoh in the world. Ironically, his reign was relatively short and unremarkable. What made Tutankhamun legendary was not how he ruled. It was how he was buried. His tomb remained hidden for more than 3,000 years. Unlike many royal burials, it escaped large-scale looting. When archaeologist Howard Carter discovered it in 1922, the world was stunned. Inside were thousands of artifacts, golden chariots, jewelry, weapons, furniture, statues, and the famous golden death mask that became an icon of ancient Egypt. For the first time, modern people could see the incredible wealth of a royal Egyptian burial almost exactly as it had appeared thousands of years earlier. The discovery reignited global fascination with ancient Egypt. Yet another ruler would come to symbolize the true power of the new kingdom, Ramses II. Known as Ramses the Great, he ruled for more than 60 years, led military campaigns, signed one of history's earliest known peace treaties, and filled Egypt with monuments celebrating his achievements. Colossal statues of Ramses still dominate temples across the country. At Abu Simbel, enormous stone figures stare across the desert just as they did more than 3,000 years ago. Under Ramses, Egypt reached one of its final peaks of greatness. But no empire lasts forever. Beyond Egypt's borders, powerful rivals were emerging. Internal challenges increased, and the long decline of the pharaohs had already begun. The civilization that once built pyramids and conquered kingdoms would soon face its greatest test. For over 2,000 years, Egypt had stood as one of the greatest civilizations on earth. It built pyramids, raised mighty temples, conquered distant lands, and created a legacy that seemed eternal. But even the strongest kingdoms cannot escape time. Slowly, the age of the pharaohs began to fade, and its final chapter would be written by one of history's most famous women, Cleopatra. After the reign of Ramses the Great, Egypt gradually weakened. Powerful rulers became less common. Foreign invasions increased. Trade routes shifted, and rival empires grew stronger around the Nile Valley. The mighty kingdom that once dominated the ancient world struggled to maintain its influence. Over the centuries, Egypt was invaded by various foreign powers. The Assyrians arrived, then the Persians. Each conquest changed the country, yet Egyptian culture remained remarkably resilient. The temples still stood, the gods were still worshipped, and the people continued living beside the Nile much as their ancestors had for thousands of years. Then, in 332 BC, a young conqueror entered Egypt. His name was Alexander the Great. Unlike many invaders before him, Alexander was welcomed by many Egyptians. He drove out the Persians and declared himself pharaoh. Soon after, he founded a new city on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria. The city would become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. Its famous library attracted scholars from across the globe. Its harbor connected Egypt to distant kingdoms, and its lighthouse became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his generals. One of them, Ptolemy, took control of Egypt. Thus began the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although the Ptolemies were Greek in origin, they ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. The last ruler of this dynasty would become legendary, Cleopatra VII. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra was intelligent, ambitious, and highly educated. Unlike many members of a dynasty, she learned the Egyptian language and embraced local traditions. But her reign came during a dangerous time. A new superpower was rising across the Mediterranean, Rome. Recognizing the threat, Cleopatra formed alliances with powerful Roman leaders, including Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony. Together, Cleopatra and Antony hoped to preserve Egypt's independence. But another Roman leader stood in their way, Octavian, the future Augustus. In 31 BC, their rivalry erupted into war. The decisive conflict came at the Battle of Actium. Antony and Cleopatra were defeated. Their dream of protecting Egypt collapsed. Within a year, both were dead. And with Cleopatra's death in 30 BC, ancient Egypt officially became part of the Roman Empire. The age of the pharaohs had ended. A civilization that had endured for more than 3,000 years finally passed into history. Yet its story was far from over. Because even after the last dynasty disappeared, Egypt's monuments remained. The pyramids still stood. The Sphinx still watched the desert. And countless mysteries remained buried beneath the sands. The pharaohs are gone. The temples have fallen silent. And the last dynasty disappeared more than 2,000 years ago. Yet ancient Egypt never truly died. Today, the pyramids still rise above the desert exactly as they did thousands of years ago. The Great Sphinx continues watching over the sands. And archaeologists still uncover hidden tombs, lost cities, and forgotten secrets buried beneath the Nile Valley. Ancient Egypt gave the world incredible achievements in architecture, engineering, writing, astronomy, and medicine. Its influence can still be seen throughout modern civilization. But perhaps its greatest legacy is mystery. How were the pyramids built? What secrets remain hidden beneath the sands? And what discoveries are still waiting to be found? Thousands of years later, ancient Egypt continues to captivate the world because its story is not completely finished. Every new discovery reveals another piece of the puzzle, and somewhere beneath the desert, history may still be waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed this complete journey through ancient Egypt, make sure to subscribe to Mystery of the Ancients and join us for more incredible stories about lost civilizations, forgotten kingdoms, ancient mysteries, and the secrets history tried to hide.